How many words in the English language do you know that have no vowels? I just used one. Shh. Look it up. It's a real word. OK. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm very thrilled to be here because I travel around the world all the time working with people just like you. In fact, most of my work tends to be with non-Americans. Most Americans think they know how to present. They don't need help. They don't want help. They probably wouldn't take the help.
Let me just get your mic adjusted.
Oh. OK. Can you hear me all right?
OK, well done.
Yes, works all right? Thank you. So I'm really, really excited to be able to work with you today and tomorrow. So the first promise I want to make you is I won't waste your time. Fair enough? All right. So to begin with, though, I like to have you go through two very simple exercises in your brain to get you ready for the information I want to share with you here today. Are you willing? First exercise. Take out a piece of paper, open up a smartphone, a notepad, your computers or whatever, and for just 60 seconds, just 1 minute, I want you to write down everything that's on your mind right now. OK? It doesn't matter what it is. I'm not going to ask you to share it with anybody sitting next to you. We're not going to use it later on today. This is only for you. Just 1 minute, write down everything that's on your mind. Ready? Go. And it could be anything. Apologize to that friend you've been meaning to apologize. Send the money back to the person you borrowed from. Sorry? I can't hear you. A to-do list. It could be anything, anything that's on your mind. If it's a to-do list, that's fine. If you have some to-dos, write them down. Anything you're thinking about. $20 more seconds. Five more seconds. Finishing up. Write in that last item. And stop. OK. So that's exercise number one. Please put that piece of paper in a really safe place. Save your file. Don't make notes from my lecture on that same piece of paper or that same file. And now, maybe for the first time today, or possibly this whole week, you should have absolutely nothing on your minds. Right? Clear slate, ready for new information. The second exercise I'd like to take you through is a reading exercise. And I'm going to put some words up here on the screen. I'm going to ask you to read them to yourself. This has to be done in complete silence for the next 2-3 minutes. Are you willing? OK. Read the words to yourself, and then look back over here at me so I know you're done. Have anybody seen this before? Perfect. We're not trying to read for context. You're not trying to figure out what it means. Just read the words once. OK? Anybody need more time? No? All right. Perfect. Now this time I'm going to put the words back up here on the screen, and I'm going to ask you all to count. Very simply, count. How many of these do you see? OK? Wait, I meant to put the words back up there yet. If you have a photographic memory, that's pretty cool, but that's not what I'm looking for. Now I'm looking for uppercase Fs. All the words on the screen I'm going to put up here are all uppercase letters, so there's no confusion. Now, adults like to make up rules, so let me give you the 3 rules that you don't have to make up yourself. 1, I'm not looking for partial letters. OK? So there's not an F inside an E. Second rule, there's no black text on a black background. And you know the third rule, there's no white text on white background. OK? So there is a definite number. When you have the number, and please, no whispering. When you have the number, please stand up. Ready? Go. Somebody should be standing by now. Shh. Shh. It's more impact if you don't whisper to the person next to you. You can double check yourself while we're waiting for the rest of the people to stand. You have your number? Yeah, everybody's standing now? I can't see it. Okay, so stay standing for just a minute. Now watch what happens around the room. All of those of you who saw 1, 2, or 3 Fs. 1, 2, or 3. That's all you saw. Please sit down now. Whoa. Whoa. How come we're all not sitting? How about 4? Could you sit down now? A few more? How about 5? Could you sit? Wait a minute. Were we all looking at the same thing? How about 6? Could you all sit down now? Yeah, everybody should be sitting down now. Okay, good. Sometimes there's somebody standing after 6, and I always wonder why, but we didn't have that situation today, which was kind of fun. So I'll put it right back up here for you. They're right there. They're staring you in the face. You just don't see them. How about the 2-letter words? Oh. 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 Okay, before you start trying to figure out the psychology behind this, before you start trying to go into the psychology behind why some people saw 3, some 4, some 5, some 6, it really doesn't matter. It could be a whole 1-hour lecture, but the point I'm just trying to make here for you is this. What I'm going to share with you now about presentations and pitching to investors, most of it's all been said before. I'm probably not even going to say anything brand spanking new here today, but what I am going to do for you is show you at least 1 F that you're not seeing right now as it relates to your presentations to customers or your pitching to investors. There are things that are staring you right in the face, just like these Fs, that I'm going to hopefully help you with right now in less than 45 minutes so that you have all the Fs that you may need and then some. Fair enough? All right, so all of you will walk out of here with at least 1 more F by the time I'm done. That's my promise. Okay, as a number of the previous speakers have talked yesterday and today, when people say, okay, Nathan, how do you captivate an audience in less than 30 seconds? My first response to you will always be, who's the audience? You must know who your audience is before you can decide what you say, how you say it. Do you use a deck? Do you not use a deck? Do you have a conversation? Do you show a demo? You have to know who your audience is. Now, all of you are very lucky. You have wonderful tools available to you free at no charge, like LinkedIn, Google, and a whole bunch of other stuff that you can find out about your audience. When I was growing up, in the early days of my business, we didn't have that kind of stuff. We had to fight and fend and call friends and family and people that we know to get information about the people in the room or talk to the people when you get there. So you have the luxury of finding out a bit about who your audience is, and I'm not here to talk to you about that because there's just too many ways to find out who your audience is. Once you know who's in your audience, then you can direct your comments and your presentation and your pitch towards that audience. Okay, and they come in all shapes and sizes, don't they? The most important thing that I want to get across to you here today is that you have to realize that the entrepreneurial explosion around the world makes it harder and harder for you to get the attention of investors and customers. There's just so many more of you. To realize that one investor might see 100 of you in 1 week is not unreal, especially in this area. They can see 30 in 3 hours down the block and then go to another event and see 40 more. So you need to figure out ways to stand out. And that's what I'm going to give you here, some things you can do to stand out. But not in a comical or a gimmicky way. Not standing on your hands unless you're doing a yoga franchise and you want to show the investor exactly what you're doing and you do your entire pitch in different yoga poses, which would be very cool. But most entrepreneurs get up there and they do their presentation and blah, 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 blah. Next up, blah, 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 blah. And they all kind of sound the same, they smell the same, they look the same, and nothing really stands out. If you don't stand out, then you sound like everybody else. If you sound like everybody else, you probably won't raise your money, and you probably won't get as many customers as you really want. You won't even attract the executive team to your company that you really want, unless you can stand out. Now, I realize we have many cultures in the room here. And in some cultures, like Norwegia, that's what my kids call it, Norwegians, they present like this. because it's, you're supposed to be very humble, and you're not supposed to even make eye contact with some people. That's kind of changing. I'm not asking you to be a really exuberant, jumping up and down type presenter, but you need to be able to do things that make you stand out around next to the other people coming down the road after you. And here's a few things you need to consider. You have many types of presentations that you need to make. When you say, I need to make an investor pitch, how much time do you have? Do you have 4 minutes? Do you have 14 minutes? Or do you have an hour? So here's some of the required presentations that all of you need to have, whether you're presenting to customers or investors. You need a 30, 60, or 90-second elevator pitch, right? You need to be able to describe what you do, what's the value in 30, 60, or 90 seconds. You may find that you're going to an event 2 weeks from now, and they give everybody 60 seconds in front of a group of people. So you have 60 seconds to say some things. What would you say in those 60 seconds? Then you have a 2-minute presentation, and usually the 30, 60, 90-second, and 2-minute presentations typically have no visuals. It's just you and a microphone or you and a group. Okay, so you just talk. Maybe you can hold something up if you're lucky enough to have something you can show. The 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7-minute presentations, that tends to be the quick, fast investor pitch kind of event. Your demo day, you'll have how many minutes? 5? Somebody in the room can tell me? I think it's 5. 4? Yes? Okay. We'll get to that point later. And then you need a 10-minute presentation. 8 and 9 just never come up. I've never seen 8 or 9s. Don't know why. But the 10-minute presentation is the maximum amount of time that you should be able to think about pitching to an investor with no questions. You should be able to get through your entire business opportunity from start to end in 10 minutes with a deck if you choose when there are no questions. As soon as I ask a question, boop, the clock's off the wall. Okay? So you need a 10-minute presentation. There's even one more presentation you need beyond all of these. Anybody want to take a guess? It's a hard one to think about. Somebody might get it. What's the one Yes? Your physical presentation? Yes, but I'm not on that track, but thank you. Yes?
10 seconds?
The 10 seconds. Wow. I never heard of that before. You have a 10-second pitch? It's shorter than that. You're on the right track. Let me just get there because we are limited on time here. It's what I call the handshake introduction. It's when you meet somebody here and you say, hi, I'm Nathan. Who are you and what do you do? What do you say in 1 or 2 sentences that will captivate their attention? Do you say, hi, I'm a social networking programmer? Or a social, do you say literally what you do? Maybe, maybe not. After today, you probably won't. So you need that handshake introduction, which is what can you say in 1 or 2 sentences? It's not the value proposition. It's not a condensed elevator pitch. It's what can you say in 1 sentence or 2 that captivate the attention. Let's get into the material. That was the warm-up. Back in 1963, President John F. Kennedy was touring NASA. And he stopped the tour. True story. You can look it up. I'll never tell you anything that's not true. He walked over to the janitor. And he said, sir, what do you do here at NASA? And the man looked up at the president and said, Mr. President, I helped put a man on the moon. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? He's a janitor. And he said, I helped put a man on the moon. Unlike most entrepreneurs, he answered with the high concept, with the big 100,000-foot view of what you're doing. He didn't say, what most of entrepreneurs do is, well, I'm a janitor. I collect the garbage at 8 o'clock at night. I sweep the floors. I do this, I do that, I do this, and then I go home, and then I come back the next day, and I do it all over again. And that's what most entrepreneurs try to tell people when they say something that could be much more powerful. So I'm going to encourage all of you to begin thinking much bigger about what you're doing and get your heads out of the what you're doing and how you're doing it and think about why you're doing it. When you think about why you're building these products and services and why you're building these companies, you will get to the higher concept. How many of you have heard about the 5 whys? Not enough of you. Okay. So look up the 5 whys. If you want to get to that high concept of putting a man on the moon for your business, look up the 5 whys, sit down with some people, and have them go through it with you. After 2 or 3 tries, you might get there. You'll certainly get closer, that's for sure. So what I'm here to share with you today is not a methodology, because I never really came up with one in the last 7 years, but I've put together a whole bunch of tools for you that my clients call the red box method. Why do they call it the red box method? I went to Shutterfly a couple of years ago. I grabbed this visual because I needed something that showed tools, and my customers started calling it the red box method. So they call it that. What it is? It's a very simple equation that will help you remember 9 tools and toys that you can use from now on whenever you're presenting anything, whether it's your business, your product, your service, whether you're interviewing, it makes no difference. So we have 9 tools and toys right here that you'll be able to remember. And let's go through them all right now. And I failed to mention earlier, I will give you a link to my Prezi at the end. So if you want to get to these visuals later on, you'll have access to it, okay? I just don't want you to get to my Prezi now because it's online and you'll look ahead. I know you will. Let's talk about the first tool, VP. We've said this so many times in the last day and a half. You all know what these 2 letters mean, right? Or stand for? Come on. Value proposition, right? We'll talk later. Value proposition. You need a value proposition, and this is, to me, where it all begins. It all begins with the value proposition, because you need to be able to articulate the value of what you're doing. My favorite value proposition man in the world is Steve Blank. He, as you all know, is the grandfather of the lean startup. And the reason I like his value proposition most is because Jeffrey Moore's is a really long one. There's about 7 or 8 different formats you can use. There's no right one out there. But in terms of getting to that one sentence that you can use in your handshake introduction, or 2, I recommend this value proposition. We help X do Y by doing Z. All you need to do is fill in the X, fill in the Y, and fill in the Z. The X is who you help. The Y is what you do. And the Z is how you do it. One sentence, and not a long run-on sentence. And. That's not allowed. Okay? So let me give you a couple examples of these. Here's one that comes from a very famous venture capital firm in the Bay Area called Garage Technology Ventures, which is Guy Kawasaki and Bill Reichert. You ask him what he does, he'll say, we start up startups. That's how he says it. We start up startups. So I played with it a little bit, and I got Bill's permission to play with it. So now he's actually tweaked it a little. We help startups start up faster. Now, where's the Z? We left it out on purpose. I want you to realize that you don't have to use the entire sentence. You can say part of it, which might be enough to get somebody to say, wow, how do you do that? Or I'd like to know more. If you want to finish this up with the Z, what and the how by providing them with access to unparalleled resources. All of you probably have some form of a value proposition right now, and if you're not using Steve Blank's formula, you might want to tweak it in and see how it works for you there. It might give you a leg up. It might help you stand out. If you try to use Jeffrey Moore's value proposition statement, it'll take too long. It might take you 30, 40 seconds to say it. And that's too long when you're first meeting somebody in line for coffee or a meal, and they look at your badge and say, so what do you do there? One sentence. All right. Here's an example of Bid Sketch's value proposition. They took a little bit of a different angle. They took more of a verb approach. So they create professional client proposals in minutes. You don't know who they do it for, but it's not that important. So be flexible on how you put your value proposition statement together. Okay? And there's tons of examples of them out there already. And if you're using the business model canvas from Lean Startup, you know that each week you're validating or invalidating your assumptions and your value propositions. Go grab all those value propositions that you haven't crossed out and bring them over to potentially help you in coming up with not just one, but you may need 2, 3, 4, or 5 different value propositions. That's the next thing I want to talk about. You need value propositions for not just your company, not just your one product. You need a value proposition for every product, for every service. So don't get stuck on, I just need one value proposition, because it's not the case. You might need more. And the way to come up with an organization of your value propositions is using this technique. It's what I call a value proposition matrix. I'll tell you where I came up with this later. But the good news is you don't have to download an app. It's just a spreadsheet. Okay? So here's how it works. Along the X row labels, you put who or what gets the value from your product or service. Okay? So if you have two different types of customers, customer A, customer B. The reason I put what is because sometimes the community might get value. So it's not a who, but it's more of a what. So you list all those out here. And then along the top, you list your values. What's an example of a value that you provide in a product or service? General, very high level. What's an example?
Lower costs.
Lower costs. Right? Lower costs, save money, save time. You know all those values, right? So you put those along the top. Lower costs, save time. Put those along the top. And then, in the cells, you put the how. So for teenagers, for female teenagers, we lowered the cost by, and write out the how. Simple as that. Then you go on to the next one. Over here, we have a value where we maybe save time. And there are two ways we save time. So write them both in there. And you keep going through this whole matrix until you're done. And it may end up looking like this. Okay? Now, you're not going to fill in every square. Every cell does not have to have something in it, because you may not save time for teenagers. It just might not be there, so you just leave it blank. Okay? Even put an X in there. And that's a really interesting way you can organize all your value propositions, so that as you develop and as your company begins to expand and grow, you can always come back here and start picking out the value propositions that you need at that time. Okay? Any questions? I know that took a little long. We have 8 more tools. Okay. Let's move on to 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sorry, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I can count now. And they're all kind of related, but you can remember them all by just remembering this word same. And that way you'll never sound the same, look the same, or say the same things as anybody else. Tool number 2 is S, right? It begins with S. Have any of you been up on this airplane where you feel weightlessness? No? I wish somebody in my group would be able to tell us what it's like up there. What do you think it's like? At that point where you reach that weightless feeling, what do you think it feels like? Anybody? Sorry? Insecure. That's very true. Imagine you're floating right here in the middle of this room and you want to go over there. You can't. You can't move. So it's an insecure feeling. That's very true. It's disorienting, actually. There's a reason they call it the vomit comet, by the way. You will lose your stomach very often. I met somebody who's been up there, and I don't have the time to go into all the details. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because in business, there may be times when people will never, ever understand what you do. They just will never get it. But that's not an excuse to not communicate and not get them to at least go, oh, yeah, I get that. You can do that. We do it all the time because we use something that I've been just teasing you about, and that is we use similes. When you say something is like something else, so long as the something else is something they really understand, they get it. It's one of the most underutilized tools in business. There are times, I promise you, there are times where no matter what length of discussion you go into, they won't get it. So stop trying to get them to get it the way you're trying to get them to get it now, and just come up with a great simile. Well, our software is like this room with lights and chairs and podiums and lecterns. and then you tell them how it's like. Silly example, but there is a very powerful use of language. Didn't know you were coming to a grammar lesson today, did you? So similes have two sides. You can't just say something like, well, you know, worrying is like a rocking chair. And leave it at that, because people won't know what you mean. So when you come up with a simile, be sure you give both sides of the simile so that they understand what you mean by the fact that a worrying is like a rocking chair, because it keeps you moving, but it gets you nowhere. Okay? So make sure that both sides of the simile come out so that people don't have to guess as to what you mean. Tool number 3. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to put this in. You can combine your value proposition together with a simile. Here it is. I help people prepare for high-stakes presentations by rehearsing them as if they were in a Broadway show. As if is the same thing as like. Okay? Who does that sound like? That's my value, one of my value propositions. Okay, tool number 3. I often ask people what they do, because the responses are very often quite exciting. I'm going to turn this down so you can watch this as I'm talking about it. And this is an example of where I asked the CEO, what did he do? And he said to me, Nathan, I'm the CEO of Maverick Surfboards. We do for surfing what the chairlift does for snow skiers. They make electric surfboards. It's a little wireless controller that goes on your thumb, and the motor in the bottom of the surfboard engages when you press that button, and you can now surf, have more fun out there, get out to the waves you want to go to. And if you think this is cheating, go ask any professional surfer whether they like this idea or not, and they're all over it. Because now they don't need people out there helping them get to the waves. They can get there themselves. It's exploded the whole amateur surfing world again. So he used an analogy, right? That's what the A stands for. He said, we do for surfing what the chairlift does for snow skiers. The problem with snow skiing is getting to the top of the mountain, and the chairlift fixes that problem. The problem with surfing is getting out to the waves, and we have fixed that problem by building the first ever electric surfboard. Now, what most people do is they would say, so what do you do? Oh, we make electric surfboards. Really? You can't say it any other way? We make electric surfboards. That's not a great opening line for most people, I would say. They'd probably say, oh, great, thanks, and off to the next person. But using an analogy where you're comparing two things together is a beautiful way to get people to understand what you're doing and the value that you bring to the table. Because trying to explain things literally to people often doesn't work. And sometimes it's quite boring. Tool number 4. This is my favorite story of all times. At the IBM Smart Camp, once a year, they bring 12 companies from around the world that are going to help make this world a better place. They bring them to San Francisco. They give them a room of about 350 investors, and they get 12 people up there, one at a time, doing their 7-minute presentations. Now, they were really good. Believe me, IBM, they coach every one of those presenters. But this one person gets up and he says, ladies and gentlemen, I am so thrilled to be here to share with you our machine that we build that turns water into money. And he puts this up on the screen. He actually makes a machine about so big. Under those yellow housings are turbines. In the middle are flappers. You throw it into a rushing waterway. You tie it off to the side. You plug it in. Now you get free electricity. So does he turn water into money? No, he doesn't. That's crazy. That's not possible, is it? But what he did is he used a metaphor. And a metaphor can be the most powerful thing out of your mouth. That might be the one thing people remember more than anything else. I'll bet you any money on the planet. Anybody who went to that session 2 years ago, you ask them, what's the one presentation that stood out for you? They'll say, oh, that guy that makes a machine that turns water into money. Everyone in the room chuckled, they smiled, they laughed, they wanted to know more. Is it a gimmick? No, it's not a joke. It's serious. He makes a machine that turns water. Yeah. He could have said this, which is what most entrepreneurs try to do. We make canal turbines. Nobody would have looked up from their laptops if he would have started out like that. So all of you can come up with statements where you can get people totally attached to what you're doing. E. I'm going to move really quickly through these because I have 12 minutes, but that's plenty of time. You'll see this is not hard. E. E is one of my favorites as well because we all use this in business. When somebody doesn't understand something, what do? You give them an example. Now, examples are great. But the problem with examples are they may not resonate with everybody you talk to. If I give an example right now that's geared towards women, I lose the men. If I give an example towards men, I lose the women. So now I have to give 2 examples, 1 man, 1 woman, to get everybody. And you don't have time for that sometimes. And that's just a simple example. So my recommendation is always keep those examples available to you. You'll want to continue using your examples, but I think you can make your examples more powerful by simply doing this. Take your example and add to that example a simile, an analogy, or a metaphor. Okay? So let's say you have this example and it works most of the time. If you want your example to work all of the time or hit more people that you're talking to, drop in a simile, analogy, or metaphor during the discussion of that example. To me, it's like a rose. Your examples are like roses that are all closed up, and they're very beautiful. But the minute they open up, they become even more beautiful. And by adding a simile, an analogy, or a metaphor to your examples, it's like, to me, an open rose. Did I say like an open rose? Is that a simile? It's not, but they come around all the time. Now, they're all over the place. If you need help coming up with them, just keep your eyes open and your ears. Look at how advertisers get your attention. They're using these techniques on you all the time. This is the world's most affordable exotic car. Literally, it is. Who cares? It's pure adrenaline. Look at the difference in the size of the font. Where do they want you to look? Warning, warning, warning. Similes, analogies, and metaphors are potentially culturally sensitive. You must test them. For example, if I said to you, let's say you just compared 2 things to me, and I said, you know what, that's like chalk and cheese. Does anybody know what that means? Look, nobody in the room knows what that means. That's because nobody's here from Ireland. If you're from Ireland, you'd know that means that's like oil and water. It doesn't mix. Or, better yet, chalk is white and cheese is white. I can't tell the difference. So we all have these sayings. Don't blindly go through life just saying them, expecting people to react, without testing them. So be sure to test your similes, analogies, and metaphors before blindly using them with people all over the world. Those are the first 5 tools. Don't have time for questions right now. I'll be here with you later all day today and all day tomorrow and Thursday, so there's plenty of time to get me with questions. Let's move right along to the next 4. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. You don't have to remember a new acronym because I'm going to go through SAME all again. This is, to me, the most important one of them all. It goes to one of the points somebody made earlier. Then as soon as I tell you what this S stands for, some of you are going to go like this. Others of you are going to go, oh, none of that again. But as our previous speakers have said, stories. Stories are the key. They are so important. And if you think you're not a storyteller, come talk to me later. Everyone's a storyteller. Every one of us is storytellers. Please don't go to Google and say, how do you tell a great story? Okay? Because you'll get 27 different ways of doing it. The best way to do it, in my opinion, is be authentic, be real, be honest, and be yourself. If you do those 4 things, you don't have to go figure out how to tell a good story. You just have to figure out how much can I tell in the time I have. If you haven't spent any time on the TED site, you ought to go to the TED site. You'll see story after story after story. None of them go up to their little red circle or their rectangle and say, my agenda for today is behind me. These are the 9 points I'm going to tell you about today. Right? None of them start like that. They all start like this. Applause dies down, music shuts off, and they say, thank you. So 3 weeks ago, I was in my backyard, And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this bright. Look at all of you. I'm making it up, and I haven't even gone 10 seconds. You all looked up. Nobody was looking down. You stopped doing what you were doing because you heard a story, the beginning of a story. The minute your brain hears a story, it says, oh, story, got to check in. It's a fact. It works all over the world even. That's the best part, is it works all over the world. This is not a cultural thing. Although somebody has told me storytelling in some cultures could be a thing, but I'm not going to get into that now. Why do stories work? Really quick. 1, 2, 3. Because people relate to them, people remember them, and this is my favorite. People retell your stories. Imagine you see an investor, and you know that they've seen 100 people that week, just like you, but you told the best story. The one that resonated with them, the one that they, wow, that was pretty impressive. When they go back to their partner meetings on Monday or Tuesday and they sit down with their big file of information they want to share, who do you think they might talk about first? Probably the story that they can retell. Because they don't even have to look up notes. They can just retell your story. And when people start retelling your story, boy, that's the best word of mouth you could ever get in the world. Moving right along. Oh. Story matrix. Now, all of you have stories, and if I had enough time, I would give you time now to write them all out. But you'd probably run out of stories after 10 or 12 or 13, maybe 14, 15 stories. I want all of you to realize that you have hundreds of stories. Every day you're creating new stories. Right here you're creating new stories. So you need to keep track of them. This comes from Craig Wortman, who wrote a book called What's Your Story? He's given me full permission to give you the best part of the book right now. He suggests that you create a story matrix for yourself so that you can always have first-hand access to everything, all your stories. Along the row labels, there are only 4 types of stories he recommends you keep track of. Success stories, failure stories, fun stories, and legend stories. You all know what these 3 are, right? But I often get a question, what's a legend story? A legend story is one of those stories that's really hard to believe, but it's provable. Okay? So like you walked out here, you were waiting for a Lyft ride, and you bumped into Guy Kawasaki. And you ended up sharing a ride with him back to BART. And he got on BART, you got on BART. By the time you got off, he said, you know what, I want you to come over to my office and give us a presentation. Woo! That's a legend. Right? So anything that's really hard to prove, I'm sorry, easy to prove, but hard to believe goes in this row. Along the top, don't take these column labels literally now. This is all up to you. The column labels are the types of stories you want to keep track of. You'll always have me stories and company stories. But in these others, you can change the column labels to be whatever you want. What types of stories do you want to keep track of? And then when you have a successful story about your company, just write a few words in here that remind you of what that story is so that the next time you need to come up with a new presentation, or maybe you get invited to a TEDx and you have 18 minutes. Maybe you get invited to FailCon. Have you heard of FailCon? It's a conference all about failure. Yeah, you come up here, you get 15 minutes to tell everybody how you failed and why they shouldn't do the same things you did so you don't fail. Well, if you have a FailCon presentation, that should be easy. Just go in here and grab all your stories and figure out how to weave them all together. You'll have hours. Hours to talk about if things go well for you. All right? So that's the story matrix. I've seen people, after years of keeping track of their stories, because I've been talking about that for about 4 years now, dense, really dense. And the best thing that I've ever seen was about a year after I talked about this. Somebody came to me and they showed me their matrix, and there were links in the matrix. You clicked on the link and you heard the story. So they actually spoke the story for 2 to 3 minutes so that people in the future could listen to the stories instead of read the stories. Now, as you're thinking about these 30, 60, 90-second, 2-minute, 5-minute presentations, I want all of you to realize that there is a limit to the number of words you can get out of your mouth in a minute, unless you're really a speed speaker. And that is, the average person speaks between 120 and 140 words per minute. So if you have a 60-second elevator pitch, and you sit down and you write down what you think you might say, not that you're going to memorize it, but you write down what you think you might want to say, if you're at 237 words, impossible. You won't get that out of your mouth in 1 minute. It's got to be somewhere between those numbers. You'd be amazed at how many words are in 2 paragraphs. You think, oh, it's just 2 paragraphs. Should be no problem. Yeah, check it out. Okay, a couple of story guidelines. 1 is the first 10 to 15 seconds of your story are when people decide if they'll listen to the rest. So the first things you say in your story ought to be things that get people to, oh, I want to listen to the rest of that. There needs to be enough meat there so that they want to listen more. And I do want to ask you to not do this mistake. I think it's a mistake. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to tell you a story. And then you tell the story. It's like we're adults. Just tell the story. Okay? You know, it's not bedtime, nighttime reading. Come on, kids, let's go have a story. Just tell the story. Okay? Now, all stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Well, most do. But you don't have to tell the beginning, middle, and end. Like my sister. She gives you every detail, all the way through. And only this part matters. Right? We all have people in our lives like that. So be sure you tell the most relevant parts of the story. And don't worry about filling in the context for all the rest of it. Because sometimes it really doesn't matter. The other thing is, you might tell just the middle of the story. Skip the beginning, go to the middle, and just tell that part of it. Maybe you tell the end of the story first. And then at the end of your presentation, you tell the beginning of the story because it means more at that point. The point I just want to make is be flexible. You don't have to tell it from beginning to end. Most of you want to take people to a movie. But in the beginning, courting with investors and customers, my recommendation is give them the movie trailer, not the movie. By giving people the movie trailer of your business opportunity, especially investors, they will want to go see the movie. If you try to give them the movie in the first meeting, they don't need to go to the movie anymore, do they? So try to keep it short, concise, to the point. And finally, your voice. Your voice is the major tool that you have when telling stories, when presenting. Please record yourself. Listen to yourself. If you can't stand yourself, guess what? Other people are going to have a hard time too. So be careful of what you do with your voice. Your voice is a very, very powerful tool that you can use to get people not only listening, but keep their attention for the entire time. And I try not to be monotonous in your delivery, because being monotonous in your delivery at one pace, one tone, all the way through is kind of boring and gets people to fall asleep. Unless you want them to fall asleep. I have to just stop for just a minute and ask, may I have an extra 5 minutes just to quickly finish up? They were out of the room, so I guess we can. Okay. All right. The next, tool number 7 comes in really handy when somebody says to you, what does your company do? What does your product do? Well, what do you do for your company? And here's how most people answer. I'm the CEO. I'm the VP of marketing. I'm a UI designer. Well, if you're in a room and everybody's a CEO, let's imagine we're all CEOs. And a speaker comes in and says, could you all go around the room and tell me what you do? And they go, I'm a CEO, I'm a CEO, I'm a CEO. It's like, really? CEO? Oh, forget it. You're all CEOs. But there are ways that you can stand out just by saying, I am something else. And using an adjective to describe the type of CEO you are can separate you out from the masses. 3 more minutes?
2 more minutes, absolutely.
Great. So using an adjective, I asked you, but you weren't in the room. Using an adjective, you can fill in something in front of what you are, in back of what you are, or in front and in back of what you are. The best statement I've ever heard, I didn't make this up, I wish I did. The entrepreneur said, I'm an entrepreneur with the soul of a dancer. With the soul of a dancer. And why does he say that? Because he's a dancer, professional dancer. He makes high-impact clothing that's used when dancers are out doing very stressful things. It's a pretty powerful statement. I wish I would have made it up. So those are the kinds of things like you can use when you're telling people who you are, and what you do that help you stand out. Number 8. This is one of my favorites because it's not for everybody. I'll go very quickly here. If your point to your product was that you take care of all the details so that they can do their business, you might pull something like this off in a room, especially of this size. Now, I'm going to warn you, this is not for everybody, but it is a tool you can use. So to illustrate to you and leave you with one lasting impression about this tool, would all of you take your left hand and put it out like this with your palm facing down? Left hand, palm facing down. Take your right hand, reach around like this, and grab your hands like this. Okay? And then just raise up your hands so I can see them all. If you don't want to participate, that's okay. All right? Okay, great. Now, on the count of 3, I want all of you to do exactly what I do. Ready? 1, 2, 3. What happened? Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. Simple as that. Now, you're all twisted up a little bit, aren't you? The reason you're twisted up is because you didn't see a little detail. There was a little detail I changed. Instead of my palm down, I put my palm up. I did this, and I can do this all day. But you missed that little detail because you weren't paying attention. And that's what our product does for you. You don't have to worry about the details. You'll never get twisted up. And thank you very much. Okay. Number 9. That's magic, by the way. And it's not for everybody. Doing magic, little magic things like that in a room can be really practice. Okay, it's not for everybody. And then finally, the last letter of our 9 tools and toys is E. Now, you've seen beautiful swans out there on the lake moving around, beautiful animals, birds, whatever. And then, they'll quack once in a while. And this is what most entrepreneurs do when they come up to give an investor pitch. They're just swans in the lake. Every once in a while, you get somebody who comes up on stage that shows tremendous enthusiasm for what they're doing, and it's like the swans have come alive. You hear them, you see them, they're making noise, and without enthusiasm, you sound like everybody else. I'm not talking about fake enthusiasm. I'm talking about the type that comes from deep within. When you believe in what you're doing, you need to let other people hear how you believe, how much you believe, without getting too crazy about it. So there you go, all 9 tools. Value proposition, simile, analogy, metaphor, examples, the first same. The second one, stories, adjectives, magic, and enthusiasm. Now you have 9 tools and toys that you can use from now on. The conclusion I want to give you to this is, if the CEO doesn't appear to be a good communicator, we don't fund the company. The person who said that is one of the most famous venture capitalists in the Bay Area, Ann Winblad from Hummer Winblad. She said that. I didn't make it up. You all need to be better communicators. We can all be better communicators. And with that, I want to say thank you. And I'll be here for the rest of today and tomorrow and Thursday, so whenever you have questions, please come to me. I'm going to turn it back. Sorry for being late.
No.